Yo, hello, what's up? Welcome back. So we have a deck list here that's just got from a recent major tournament. Let's call this one as a Japan Open, and this is the first or the champion list that's gone from the tournament. I think the tournament was filled with about 500 plus players, and you can see here that this deck would still become a relevant archetype in the format now that with Wild Eldraine has still entered the fray or somewhat improved this deck. So we're going to highlight the list of what it has become of the Esper Raffine deck in this metagame with Wilds of Eldraine. So going to start off with 15 features. You can see here the preview of this cards as to why it is called as that. So the new cards here you notice is Lord Skeeter, Sewer King. So this card would look like to be that of a version of a Graveyard Trespasser because of its ability that can exile target card from our opponent's graveyard. And the bonus here is that it also acts as a Rebel Master in a way. If you remember, the Goblin Rebel Master produces the Goblin tokens, and Lord Skeeter also produces tokens, but this time it is that of a 1/1 black rat creature token that can't block. It's not only that of the drawback, but because it can go filter and can gum up the board and can also fill the role of that of attacker of Raffine schemings here. That you have this option that can connive X, where X is equal to the number of attacking creatures. So again, we can check one by one. So we have 4 Denic Pies Apprentice. So this is now probably the default 2-drop of its deck. Other options was we have another 2 black from black, but this time we go with this ability because of the option that we can have this one flip into Denic Pious Apparition in the mid game or up to the late game. So that is 4 copies. We also have the Fairy Mastermind, which is probably the staple component of the first deck in the metagame. But this one would also fill the role of the 2-drop and can also become a huge effect of card draw engine in the mid game. And again, we also have 2 copies of the Lord Skeeter, though that's only 2 in the deck. And of course, 4 copies of Raffine, Scheming Seer, and 3 copies of Children, the Apocalypse, which again goes well with that of the ability of Fairy Mastermind. And that to the setup, we have 7 enchantments. The new card here included, aside from the usual wedding announcement, is the 3 copies of Virtue of Loyalty. So this is the fun to cast enchantment, but its ability to adventure early on, which can create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance, would also become a relevant 2-drop in a way of how this deck would curve. And the benefit here of the Virtue is that whenever end step, put a +1% counter on each creature you control and then untap those creatures. It is also very relevant because of most of these creatures are evasive with a flying here, and also have a flying Raffine and Death Touch. In which way, if you have this Virtue, you can have them bigger in the power and toughness, but also have them to untap and be still up for defense in this build. Now for the instance, we have 9 in its deck, so mostly composed of spot removals, of cut down, go for the throat, and counter spell in the form of make disappear. So noted that in the main deck, it only has 3 relevant counter spell, but can be built upon later on post sideboard games with more of this. For the lands, we still have 26, which also includes those of the new card Restless Fortress. So that is along of the channel lands here that can serve as a utility cards with Iganjo, 2 copies, 1 Otawara and 1 Takinuma. And of course, Plaza of Heroes as a way to do the mana fix, because it can also be used to cast legendary spells. So if you notice that the creatures are mostly that of the legendary. And Tri-lands again for Raffine's Tower, that goes with Esper colors. And for the Planeswalkers, we only have 3 Wandering Emperor as more of the support, but goes well to also produce its own creatures with the form of a Samurai creature token with Vigilance. And for the sideboard, just going to be a quick setup of this. We have additional cut downs to go well against other aggro decks, 2 Jures for the mid range and control matchups. One experts might probably go for the mono red because it just want to cast 3 damage to attacking creature or blocking creature and gonna exile them. Destroy Evil would go with the utility of destroying creatures with toughness 4 or greater or an enchantment. And this is one I mentioned, 2 copies of Sinful Stroke that can go well to counter huge mana relevant spells against your opponents. And 1 copy of Negate just to go with a definite non-creature counter spell, which can also be very relevant in some matchups. And additional Planeswalker in the form of Kaito Suzuki to go with the sideboard of card draw and also producing Blue Ninja creature token with the only drawbacks that can block. And 1 copy of Noran of the third path. This is to go to do an enchantment or a disenchant effect, destroying artifact or enchantment, and also can hit you, draw cards, and with Shoulder in play can also be lose life engine against your opponents. And suddenly we still have a temporary lockdown here. It goes with maybe the huge matchup with maybe tokens or mono red, since it can exile each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. And a copy of the Earthtide Resurrected to more of a counter spell effect on a body of a 3/2 flash, can also act as a spot removal to destroy a target creature or planeswalker. And of course the 4th copy of the One Ray Emperor in sideboard. And a Kisses command for somewhat of a utility that can destroy each creature with power or less, and can also sacrifice a creature with highest mana power among creatures you control of your opponent, and putting some counters on up to 1 creature and having them lifelink at the end of the turn. And Reanimate effect with the return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So how you would set up this board with a lot of 1-offs, you can just basically pick up some of the irrelevant cards or spells in this main deck just to make sure that you can still be able to curve out early on with your main Raffine Scheming Seer game plan, but go well with how your mid-range or mid-game or up to your late game setup would look like with this card. So in the setup, I think we'll go with several relevant counter spells, the Sinful Strokes, Negates, and added Kaito Suzuki, the One Ray Emperor, and Earthtide Resurrected to go against mid-range decks. Stuff for the aggro, you just really need additional cut down. Elspeth Smite, a temporary lockdown would also work. Also with Gissy's command, that can still get you lifelink and sweeper and the setup. So last but not the least, the mana value would go with just 2.85. That's fairly average in the setup. More of the cards are just in the 2 mana cost and 3 mana cost in total. Color distribution would go with black of 18, blue is 13, but white is surprisingly 27, and its producer are pretty much even with 19 to 20 each. And last but not least are tokens. So these are your 7 tokens you can add with an extra of the Kaito Suzuki emblem. So I guess that's pretty much it for this list. You can see the list from MTG Top 8 on the setup. It was added, I think that was last weekend. But pretty much with this World's Championships tournament is going to held in Las Vegas this weekend, will we really see how this deck would turn out or how it would perform. The Esper is one of the top deck choices in the field for that major tournament. So we're still going to observe how this deck would still work out on that event in this coming weekend. So I guess that's pretty much it for this tech. We have a new update for the Esper Raffine from Japan Open. It's produced in a major tournament. Thank you for checking this video, and hope we can still be able to see how we could have more of these future deck techs or deck updates in standard and also in Pioneer format. Thank you guys for checking this one, and see you on the next video.